Did I like the latest Superman movie? Well, let's see. Did it focus on the endearing nature of what makes Superman so great? Did it give us some of the most amazing, zany, fun, dynamic action scenes? Did it wrestle with geopolitical conflicts that may or may not reflect the current landscape of the real world today? Well, let's talk about it and find out. But first, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Like the video and comment your thoughts. I'm really trying to foster some in-depth discussion. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the Man of Tomorrow.
Superman, Superman.
So, going into this movie, I didn't really know what to think. There's been a decent variety of Superman movies, but for me, the definitive version that I low-key compare every version to is the Bruce Timm version from the 1996 animated series and later the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited shows. Those shows to me really grasp the endearing nature of Superman and what he's all about by not giving him some god complex and viewing the salvation of humanity as his burden to bear, but however, emphasizing the humanity in Superman and underlining the complex feelings that come along with being raised as a human and discovering during adolescence that you have otherworldly powers with no one to truly know where you've come from except your deceased parents that sent you to Earth because your home planet was doomed. Superman is not some godlike alien that has come to Earth to subjugate the population, nor is he some cynical man baby that flexes his power to inspire fear. And while I appreciate those both nuanced and satirical takes respectively, there is a reason why Superman is the blueprint. Superman was a character created in 1938 that first appeared in issue number 1 of Action Comics. And although there are earlier representations of the archetypal superhero, i.e., the outlandish outfit, the code name, and the fighting of evil with superpowers, all while avoiding catastrophes, Superman was also invented at a time that was fraught with upheaval as America was still in the thick of the Great Depression. And many who were struggling to make ends meet were craving the escape that comic books and superheroes would soon come to provide. This movie is supposed to be the first full-length installment of the new DC universe, helmed by co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran. After the sputtering out of Zack Snyder's DCEU, Superman was promised to be a brave new take of the beloved character and revealed to have taken much inspiration from 2005's All-Star Superman, which spoke to Grant Morrison's desire to tell a timeless Superman story that wasn't an origin story and received critical acclaim for its emotional storytelling, characterization, writing, and artwork. DC Entertainment wanted an equivalent to Marvel Studios' Kevin Feige that could craft a coherent, creative string of films that would not be sequel to 2013's Man of Steel or any other Snyder DCEU film. This would result in Gunn and Safran crafting an 8 to 10 year plan for a new DCU that would be a soft reboot since Peacemaker was still tied to the franchise. On January 31st, 2023, Gunn and Safran unveiled the first projects from their DCU slate, which begins with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, and Superman became the first film to introduce the bold new world. David Cornsweet's Superman is kind-hearted and altruistic. I mean, he saved a squirrel during a giant kaiju fight, for goodness sake. This movie goes to great lengths to show that it is not shying away from depicting Superman as noble as possible. As we've seen in previous iterations, Christopher Reeves, for a number of years, has been considered to be the gold standard when playing Clark Kent, though Tom Welling playing a younger iteration in Smallville and is many's first exposure to the character. Brandon Routh was fine, but didn't leave a lasting impact on me. And though I find Henry Cavill's version to be a fascinating adaptation and was let go of the role rather unceremoniously, might I add, the material he was working with failed to grasp Superman's earnest nature. And I still have yet to see Superman and Lois, though I have been told Tyler Hoechlin's turn is an inspiring performance. David Cornsweet is handsome, has the charisma, and approaches the character with a magic that, dare I say, has not been seen before in these films. The most interesting thing about this movie is quite possibly the way it depicts a fictional conflict between the in universe nations of Moravia invading the neighboring country of Jaranpur. In fact, that's where this movie starts off, as the opening scene draws the audience in so effortlessly, with Superman trying to stop the invasion being stoked by Baravian President Vasil Gurkos by warning the US to leave Jaranpur alone, which, right off the bat, intentionally or otherwise, draws allusions to real life conflicts like the genocide in Gaza or the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In Metropolis, Superman is defeated for a shocking first time by a metahuman named the Hammer of Baravia. After such a crushing defeat, there is a great scene that was featured in the trailer which sees the first appearance of Krypto in a Superman movie flying him to the Fortress of Solitude, but is unknowingly followed by the engineer played by Maria Gabriela de Paria, who is an ally of Lex Luthor's. The Baravian Jaranpur conflict is incredibly illustrated in my favorite scene in the movie, where Clark agrees to an exclusive interview from Lois as Superman about the controversial conflict concerning Superman's involvement in the affair. This scene is so fantastic because it succinctly manages to convey to the audience both characters' perspectives as well as further personify Clark as this altruistic character. From Lois's perspective, Superman illegally entered a country and fanned the flame of an already heated conflict and inadvertently siding with a non-US ally. And Clark, as Superman, is advocating for saving lives regardless of what their country affiliations might be. The scene gets quite heated and demonstrates some phenomenal chemistry between the two dynamic actors. This movie also features a version of the Justice Gang, which is comprised of Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, with a bowl cut, mind you, as well as Hawk Girl, who's very different than the Justice League show some might be familiar with. But to me, the star of this team is Mr. Terrific, whom in many ways is the standout star of this entire movie, played by Eddie Gathegi, who, funnily enough, played the mutant Darwin in 2011's X-Men First Class, where he was unceremoniously killed off, even though that character's mutant ability is to adapt to any environment, effectively making him indestructible. Yet, he still dies, because reasons. This movie, however, attempts to right that wrong, albeit in a completely different comic universe. Take that, Marvel. Lex Luthor in this film is a special kind of brilliant, due in large part to the vaunted Nicholas Hoult as well as the palpable chemistry he has with David, which is arguably the most important aspect of a Superman-Lex Luthor dynamic. This level of gravitas has been unfortunately lacking in past iterations, particularly with Jesse Eisenberg's unhinged take on the evil genius, but this version has been a much welcomed return to form. I really enjoyed the tech bro tilt that this movie took, even going so far as to have clear allusions to internet trolls that aim at Superman that turn out to be nothing more than mindless hordes of monkeys used by Lex Luthor in his pocket universe, as a means to undermine and get under the Man of Steel's skin, so to speak. The film goes a great deal to illustrate the ire Lex holds for Superman because ultimately, Luthor is a small man that sees the very idea of a Superman as an insult to the human race. There is a great issue in All-Star Superman, The Gospel According to Lex Luthor, issue number 5, which best summarizes this dynamic, as Lex has been sentenced to death in prison for his numerous crimes, and Clark visits him for an interview. And after a prison riot, Clark must both save the inmates as Superman while remaining as unsuspecting as possible in front of Lex, which only inspires further contempt between the two. Lois Lane, as well as Jimmy Olsen and the rest of the Daily Planet crew, are just as lovable as ever, peppered into the plot with expert measure. Specifically, Lois's characterization felt fully realized and not solely reliant on Superman to come save the day. The only aspect I wasn't too fond of was Metamorpho, whom I think felt a bit tacked on and didn't operate as much more than a plot device. The actors that played Clark's parents were so lovable, and I really found myself getting deeply emotional at the scene between Clark and John Kent. Relating to Clark as he's just had such a crushing defeat tells him that it's not the parents' job to completely dictate what their child does in this world. However, to set them up the best way they know how to and send them on their way. Such beautiful words. Ultimately, I find that this movie achieved in what it set out to do: establish an all new universe, showcase a new batch of fun and exciting characters, and present a time worn icon to the tune of an excellent score through a cinematic lens that only Gunn and his collaborators could have concocted, that will make for a pleasant rewatch. In a world that seems to be increasingly thriving on greed and apathy, Superman shows us that kindness is indeed punk rock. Stay super.